Most people think of the dark web as a myth, a place full of hackers, hitmen, and horror stories. But here's the thing, a lot of those stories, they're real. Hidden behind layers of encryption are websites most people will never see, not because they're hard to find, but because once you do find them, you wish you hadn't. We're talking about marketplaces for illegal experiments, forums filled with cryptic countdowns, and live streams no one should ever be watching. Some of these sites were up for years and others vanished overnight. A few, people claimed they were cursed, or worse, they follow you. Today we're not talking about urban legends, we're talking about the darkest corners of the internet that actually existed. And by the end of the video, you'll understand why some people say curiosity is what gets you killed on the dark web. Please like and subscribe, it helps so much. And let's get into some disturbing dark web websites. Alphabay. Most of you have probably heard of the Silk Road, the infamous dark web marketplace where drugs were freely sold. You might not know of its successor though, even though at its peak it had 10 times the users that Silk Road ever had. Founded in 2014, a few months after its predecessor was shut down by the FBI, it reached nearly 370,000 listings at its peak with 400,000 users and saw over $800,000 flow through the site in the form of crypto transactions every single day. The creator, Alexandre Casas, under the moniker Alpha02, was well known in carding forums, the black market for stolen card info. He would help out over there and eventually would decide to start his own marketplace. And Alphabay was born. It was modeled after a conventional e-commerce site. In its About Me section, Casas said that its goal was to become the largest eBay-style underground marketplace. He was well aware of the illegal activities he was facilitating and even advised vendors on how to avoid law enforcement. He charged each vendor a fee so they could sell on his site and charged a commission on each transaction, around 2 to 4%. A staff on payroll helped him maintain the site, which included a security administrator, D-Snake, who had similar access as Alpha02, several monitors who could help refund Bitcoin, scam watchers who would look out for phishing attempts, etc., and even a PR manager who would manage outreach by posting on Reddit and other public forums. However, just like Silk Road, it would fall too. And for the same reason too. Laughably sloppy security. When Alphabay was launched, an associated forum was launched to allow customers to discuss. When you signed up, it asked you for an email for password recovery, and to that email, Alphabay would send an email, welcoming them. Sounds like a good idea, right? Customers should feel welcomed after all, except for the fact that the email address that sent these emails was actually Casas's personal email. Whenever you wanted to reset your password, you would also get an email from the same address. Obviously, law enforcement very easily found out who owned it. Casas's name and date of birth was revealed, and his LinkedIn profile showed that he worked at EBX Technologies. EBX Technologies was supposedly a web design firm, but its website was barely functional itself. Not a very good first impression for potential customers. In fact, as you may have guessed, it was a shell company to manage his crypto holdings and liquidate them without too much trouble. Currently, the website displays this message. Following the sudden death of Mr. Alexandre Casas in July 2017, CK acquired a portion of the assets of EBX Technologies. If you are a company or an individual who has done business with EBX Technologies in the past and have pending work or other needs, please contact us at your convenience. We would be delighted to meet you and discuss how we can help. We look forward to hearing from you. When it comes to the company that supposedly purchased the assets of EBX, CK is a very unique web design and development website. There's a chance that EBX Technologies very did service web development for clients. They soon found out that Casas was living in Bangkok, Thailand. The Royal Thai police, working together with the FBI, arrested him. Incredibly, his laptop was open, unlocked, and unencrypted. It was logged into the Alphabay website as admin, and he was in the process of rebooting the server as it went offline from an outage that the law enforcement created themselves. Every single password, including the website and server passwords, were listed in an open plain text file. Obviously, they seized everything. Apparently, Casas's liked to be organized, as there was another file that identified all assets and holdings that Casas held. It was very detailed, listing the storage and location of all crypto and assets like cars and property that he had bought. Pretty convenient for the police to find and seize everything. It turns out he was also trying to obtain citizenship in Cyprus, where it is possible to gain residence by investing in the country. He had sent 2.38 million euros to buy a villa to a Cyprus bank and had successfully bought his way into the country. And you may wonder why Cyprus? Well, Kazis probably chose it for its unique extradition laws. Before the formation of the European Union, countries would refuse to extradite you for crimes you committed in another country. However, after the formation of the European Union, this changed, and now EU countries consider each other as domestic for the purpose of extraditions. Despite Cyprus being a part of the EU, its extradition laws are different and would reject any foreign interference. And side note, the US is actually the only real exception to this, however. Cypriot banks only interface with the EU, so it does not get involved. Furthermore, they are very careful to not conduct business with any US citizens. Combined with the fact that citizenship can be easily bought, and the banks don't really care where the money comes from, it makes it a very attractive location to launder money through. In the end, he had a total net worth of $23 million from his underworld empire. A few days after his arrest, he was found dead in his cell, allegedly committed S-word. Many in the dark web community felt like he was murdered. This was not the end of the story for Alphabay though. You might remember a site administrator that had a similar level of access to the site, DSnake. 4 years later, he relaunched as the Lone Leader to make the Alphabay name be remembered as more than the marketplace that got busted and founder made out to have committed S-word, in his own words. This time, however, the site would not compromise on security. One of the reasons Kazis was caught was through Bitcoin blockchain analysis, but now the site only accepted Monero, another cryptocurrency network which the same hack would be almost impossible to replicate on. In an interview with Wired, he detailed his security practices. He runs an Amnesak operating system which wipes all data on reboot. Furthermore, he claims to not store any incriminating data on hard drives and has a USB kill switch which would wipe his computer's memory in seconds. He shuts it down every time his PC leaves his site, even for bathroom breaks. In his own words, biggest issue is that regard is the human needs. I would say that is the biggest inconvenience. You make sacrifices, though once you get used to it, it becomes second nature. While Kazis made plans to go to a non-extradition country, DSnake actually managed it and says that he is located in the former USSR. Alphabay always had ties to Russia. Its rules had always banned the sale of data stolen from victims from former USSR countries, which is a common practice among Russian hackers to prevent scrutiny. Now, DSnake implemented a blanket ban on discussion on USSR countries such as Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Armenia, etc. Still, DSnake says he has traveled to several continents in the last 4 years and was living freely, all because of him always being technically ahead of the law. It didn't live up to its former glory, however, with only 500 listings in the beginning of its relaunch. But it does have a few flashy new features, mainly AlphaGuard. DSnake claims that it lets its users withdraw their funds even if Alphabay went offline, as it automatically rents and sets up new servers if Alphabay is detected as being offline. This way, customers can be sure that they won't lose any money. A new I2P mirror was launched, which is a project designed to be a fully encrypted private network layer, and his fortifications aren't fully built yet, apparently. He plans to make a fully decentralized marketplace with no singular point of failure where he plans to host Alphabay. The community is more skeptical, however, such as a thread on a majority Russian forum, XSS, where many users are distrustful of DSnake. It's fake and 99% sure, and Fed's opening it again, one commenter wrote. DSnake's utopian vision didn't last long. In January 2023, the site went offline. This wasn't unusual, and the site was supposed to come back shortly. However, time stretched on and there was nothing. DSnake was radio silent. A month later, one of the Alphabay admins posted a message on Reddit, going by the handle Alphabay the Cypriot. They claimed that it was not law enforcement, the signs were just not there. Instead, it was partially shut down because one of the canaries used by the site was not signed on time. A canary is a way to tell users that a website may have been compromised. It requires the administrator to regularly sign a public message containing some independently verifiable information with their key. If it is not updated, it may indicate a security breach. The snake, as part of his moat, implemented this directly into the security. It would basically initiate a lockdown on the market because the snake had not signed it with his key for a month. This was not the first time this happened either. Similar incidents had occurred previously, but the site had always come back. This time, though, it looked like it was gone for good. So where was the snake? One theory that makes more sense is that he was a casualty of the Turkey-Syria earthquake. He did say that he lived in a non-extradition country and had some strong links to Russia. Syria is mostly under the control of the Syrian Arab Republic, which is backed by Russia and Iran. 24,000 Syrians died in the devastating earthquake, and a snake could very well have been one of them. However, there is no concrete proof, and what really happened to the snake remains a mystery, just as he would have wanted to be. Cannibal Cafe. Everyone has their unique tastes, but most of the time they're legal, and while weird, are usually harmless. But there's a disgusting group of people out there whose interests and hobbies are borderline psychotic. Started in 1994 by Perro Loco, Cannibal Cafe was a website for, well, cannibals. Loco was well known in these dark corners of the internet, and was hailed as somewhat of a celebrity, popularizing a quote-unquote artist who would depict bondage, torture, and cannibalism in his art. This artist went by the pseudonym Dulcet. While it was just a moniker, the word dulcet is defined as a pretty terrible kick. It's a fish about some, disgusting stuff, and I'll leave it at that. Loco would continue posting and popularizing Dulcet's work, and after a while, Dulcet gave him full permission to post it online and was pleased that he was getting the free promotion. This is what prompted Loco to create the Cannibal Cafe. It lasted for 8 years before it was shut down by a distributed denial of service attack by German authorities. In those 8 years, however, it managed to produce some of the most gruesome stories of documented cannibalism ever. And this would range from people signing themselves up as livestock to Loco killing and eating an entire human being. The website would feature a gruesome livestock marketplace which was constantly filled with individuals, both men and women, looking to eat or be eaten. People would apply to be livestock and go through training. You can use your imagination as to what the training might have been. They would call these people who signed up to be livestock as cows, and it was outlined in the subhead of the webpage that there is no limitation of the intended or actual use of any of our cows. But should any leased livestock be terminated during the lease period, you'll be invoiced for the full purchase price. I'd rather not find out what some people did with their purchased livestock, but it only gets worse from here. Chelsea Loco, Perro Loco's supposed daughter, was on the website, and the description is, well, horrifying. Daddy, I'm ready. Hope I taste as good as Mom. And then it goes on to describe her height, weight, and some general descriptions of her body parts, and I'll leave that out, but it's just horrifying. Another livestock listing was Cow Tina, who supposedly engaged in S-word, and her meat was up for sale. Cannibal Cafe wasn't only for genuine savages who wanted to own and sell humans to eat or do even worse things with, but it had several other branches. Stuff shows are adult videos which involve murder as a form of, fun video for some people, psychopaths. Let's get into the disclaimer. Our websites are subscription or pay-per-view entertainment for adult audiences only. Our sites contain nudity and simulated violence intended purely as fantasy entertainment. We do not encourage nor condone real-life violence against others. There is no pornography at these sites, and no one is actually hurt during the making of our photo stories and videos. It linked to several other websites which would contain videos of men, but mostly women, in other adult videos. Despite the very convincing disclaimer, the videos on the sites were real, with real women and men taking part in these heinous acts. The website encouraged heavy participation of viewers, that being through one of two ways. The first being a guest book where users would sign, leaving recommendations, opinions, or really whatever they felt like saying. This guest book had a concerning amount of sign-ons, each with increasingly concerning messages. Great site. Looking forward to see more ESP, more cows from Europe available for torture and slaughter. Wish more wild stuff went on there. Hope that this site rolls for you. Hey, looks nice so far. Can't wait for the human livestock to be bred and cattled. Right from the start. The Cannibal Cafe also hosted a message board, which is what would lead to its eventual shutdown. But what brought this site to the attention of the authorities was the Mewis Jurgen case. A user of Cannibal Cafe, Armin Mewis, had started talking to another user on the website, 44-year-old Bernd Jurgen Brandis, who lived 250 miles away from Armin. They started talking after Armin responded to an ad posted by Brandis on the Cannibal Cafe message board, who was looking for someone to eat him alive. On March 9th, 2001, Armin brought Jurgen home and had sex with him before killing him. While Brandis did consent to this, it's still very illegal. The following events were recorded on a video camera. And of course, I can't show any of this on YouTube since it is way too disturbing. Mewis performed a series of disturbing and illegal acts on Brandis, which involved severe bodily harm. Brandis had taken medication beforehand to help with the pain. Warning, the following details are still very graphic and unsettling. Viewer discretion is strongly advised, and if you have a weak stomach, please skip to the timestamp on screen. Following these initial acts, the two prepared and shared a meal involving Brandis' body. Brandis later requested to be left to pass peacefully, succumbing to his injuries overnight. His final words were reportedly, "I have to piss," before he collapsed. In the months that followed, Mewis continued to consume parts of Brandis before being arrested in December 2001. He was initially charged with manslaughter, but after a retrial in 2006, he was convicted of murder and disturbing the peace of the dead. So that was a YouTube-friendly description of what happened that day. Mewis is currently serving life in prison. Paraloco is still out there, the creator of Cannibal Cafe. After posting an announcement on the message board reading, "I am in the process of putting up an all-new website which is called..." And the site is dedicated to the concept that there are real doll-set girls and we are going to explore our darkest desires, or at least I am, and you are welcome to join me for the fun. One thing in particular that I'm going to do is set up a photographic diary, or logbook if you will, following the progression of our doll-set girls from the relative innocent submissive through training as the ultimate submissive to cattle status and ultimately to meat on the table. In addition, the site will feature my entire collection of doll set art and doll set style art, as well as photographs, both real and Memorex. We already have at least one real doll set girl and of course, are looking for more. I'm sorry that I haven't been keeping up on the posts here in this forum. I'll try and do better. I'm wondering if Terry is interested in becoming a real doll set girl, since I know that most of you would love to see photos of her training and what follows. By the way, the best way to reach me is always via email. I can be reached through either of my addresses, which are... Thanks for your attention, Paraloco. This website is still up and running, the one that he recently created, but I will not say it, and don't go looking for it. Big disclaimer, do not go looking for this website. This is still an active forum site and has a very extensive registration agreement. The agreement does have some interesting and concerning aspects to it though. The first paragraph says this: you agree, through your use of this forum, that you will not post any material which is false, defamatory, inaccurate, abusive, vulgar, hateful, harassing, obscene, profane, sexually oriented, threatening, invasive of a person's privacy, adult material, or otherwise in violation of any international or United States federal law. The website will force you to provide your legal, legitimate information. After you register and log into this forum, you'll be able to fill out a detailed profile. It is your responsibility to present clean and accurate information. Any information the forum owner or staff determines to be inaccurate or vulgar in nature will be removed with or without prior notice. Appropriate sanctions may be applicable. And if for any reason they're finally caught, they politely inform you that they will outright leak your personal information. You remain solely responsible for the content of your posted messages. Furthermore, you agree to indemnify and hold harmless the owners of this forum, any related websites to this forum, its staff, and its subsidiaries. The owners of this forum also reserve the right to reveal your identity or any other related information collected on this service, in the event of a formal complaint or legal action arising from any situation caused by your use of this forum. So, it's very clear why I haven't decided to probe deeper. Please note that with each post, your IP address is recorded. In the event that you need to be banned from this forum or your ISP contacted, this will only happen in the event of a major violation of this agreement. Also note that the software places a cookie, a text file containing bits of information such as your username and password, in your browser's cache. That is only used to keep you logged in/out. The software does not collect or send any other information to your computer. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm having a hard time trusting that, especially after seeing what these guys get into. There's two options once you've signed your rights away. One being that you're above the age of 18 and that you accept the terms, or that you're younger than 18. In most cases, a button which says that you're younger than 18 and accept the terms will probably kick you off the website. But with this, who knows what it does. The website was insanely popular all the way up until 2011, where it was reported that it received over 1 million visits each month, with even a US congressman being an active user. The average user age was around 40, and the website was under constant scrutiny by the FBI, with Loco himself having been hauled into questioning numerous times. Paraloco believes he's doing no harm by encouraging these activities, believing that consenting adults should be able to do whatever they want, even if that involves killing each other. Except this doesn't reflect on the issues where there are young, impressionable children and teenagers who may stumble upon these sites and grow up with a deeply sick and twisted worldview. In the Maywis case, it was reported that his fetishes came upon him as a result of his twisted upbringing paired with his environment at the time. He grew up with a psychotic mother who had heavy, misandrous views, making him Maywis dependent on her completely. It would go as far as her accompanying and practically chaperoning him to dates and even work trips. She would guilt trip him, humiliate him, and her psychoticness was further solidified by the fact that both her ex-husbands left due to mental cruelty. Maywis' cannibalism developed during his adolescence, after he was introduced to home slaughtering of cattle, poultry, hogs, and deers, and being taught how to gut small animals like rabbits since he was just 6 years old. In most cases, this would have led to anyone else turning into a well-adjusted and equipped individual with strong survival skills and a pretty fun and cool childhood. But due to his upbringing being so lonely and an early exposure to the internet, it led to him murdering a man instead. Consent or not, murder is still murder. Besa Mafia. The Besa Mafia was, as you might expect, not your typical organized crime syndicate that had unusually strong ties to Mediterranean countries. Instead, it was a new age assassination marketplace hosted entirely online. Hitmen were freely available for hire to carry out your dirty jobs, from maiming to kidnapping, and of course, murder. For the ambitious, you could even apply to be one. Soon, however, the facade crumbled. Chris Montero, a systems administrator who runs IT security for a firm in London, is a digital vigilante working as an independent cybercrime researcher in the off hours. In 2016, he stumbled on the website, Besa Mafia, and wrote a scathing critique on its blog, Pirates London, claiming that it was a scam and exposing its many security flaws. Reputation was very important to the owners of Besa Mafia, and the supposed site administrator, Yura, messaged him, furious, imploring him to take it down and then attempting to bribe him. Montero, of course, refused, believing that it was an all-empty threat. Yura seemingly wasn't all smoke, however. A few days later, he sent Montero a YouTube link of him setting a car on fire, holding a sign that said that it was dedicated to Pirate London, Montero's blog. Now worried that maybe it was actually a genuine hitman marketplace, Montero, along with an anonymous cybercop going by the name of Judge Judy, shut down the website entirely using a vulnerability that allowed him to see every order, which he later leaked online to be picked up by the FBI. Yura did not fall at this hurdle though, and continued setting up similar sites with similarly threatening names such as Sikhalin Hitman and Azerbaijani Eagles, Camorra Hitman, and a host of others. They all worked the same way. An aspiring criminal would set up an anonymous account, select their desired job, and upload the details. They would start a chat with Yura where he would coax them into trusting him and the Bitcoin would be sent over. Now, some of you may have had this suspicion from the beginning, that it was actually a scam and there were no real murders looking for the job, and you would be right, of course. Yura did not put much effort into making it believable either. His English was poor and his knowledge of the US geography even worse. For example, one user ordered a hit on somebody in Hawaii. Yura responded by saying that he had a hitman in the nearby state who could drive there and do the job no problem. For those unfamiliar with the United States, Hawaii is an island roughly 2,500 miles away from the nearest state. Not to mention that driving there would be very difficult with the Pacific Ocean between it and the US. The user still paid $3,000. The site used stock pictures of assassins and results from a Google search for scary-looking hitman on its front page. It would be laughable, if not for the real and despairing loss of lives that did actually occur due to this site. In February of 2016, a user named Dog Day God ordered a hit on a middle-aged woman posting, "For reasons that are too personal and would give away my identity, I need this bitch dead, so please help me." The target was Amy Alwine of Cottage Grove, Minnesota. She had a husband, Stephen, who worked as an IT professional and was also an elder in the United Church of God. They had an adopted teenage son. Dog Day God transferred around $6,000 in Bitcoin to Ura, feeding him information on when Amy would be alone in the house or places outside she would go where there would be no one else. First, they discussed a hit and run. Dog Day God liked this idea as it could be seen as an accident. And then arson. Ura promised him that it would be done soon, but the hitman were failing and he couldn't do anything about it. Of course, there were no attempts at all, and Ura kept asking for more money after each supposed failure, and Dog Day God grew angrier. "I do not care about date or method. You have her picture and address, so you can tailor or do whatever you need to do to get the job done." One curious request, however, was that the husband and kid be left alone. He claimed that the kid was a friend of their child and he did not wish to see him orphaned, a surprising amount of thought and empathy from someone who was planning to murder the kid's mother. Thankfully though, a couple of months later, nobody was murdered and nothing came from it. Another hacker by the name of BRSPD broke into the website and dumped all the chat logs online in May of 2016. The FBI picked these up and alerted all the targeted victims. They told Amy and Stefan to bump up their security, so they bought a home security system and a gun to protect themselves with. Stefan shot Amy in the head with the very same gun 6 months later. Stefan was Dog Day God all this time. Makes sense why in the request he made it that the assassin shouldn't kill the husband or child. The truth was that he had been having affairs through Ashley Madison, which was a website for married or people in relationships to find other like-minded individuals to cheat with. He could not divorce his wife because of his position in the church, and so he took this drastic measure. Before it all started, he took out a $700,000 life insurance policy in his wife's name and had been sending her threats and pressuring her to end her life online. He attempted to make it look like an S-word, however, a police investigation revealed that the Bitcoin signature of the payments he made with Ura, recovered from the chat logs, matched the hard drive on his laptop. Proof that it was in fact not a S-word but a long-planned murder. Convicted of first-degree murder, he was sentenced to life in prison. Stefan is still serving out his sentence to this day. The inhumanity of the users really showed when another order was revealed. Another user by the name of Agent Psy inquired about a possible hit on a 14-year-old. It was no prank or some sort of morbid joke either, as the user actually transferred roughly $18,500 to Ura, and so somewhere in New Jersey, a kid is walking around with a nearly $20,000 bounty on his head. Another chat log revealed that a woman from Nevada ordered a hit on her ex-husband and transferred 12 Bitcoin to Besa Mafia. She was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison on the charge of a murder-for-hire plot. Thankfully, Besa Mafia was a scam website, so the major loss from its creation was the Bitcoin wallets of criminals, but innocents were still hurt or killed, as in the case of Amy Alwine. Or was a huge online image board. It had barely any moderation, if any at all, leading to the posting of some very disturbing and usually outright illegal videos, images, and messages. It was created in October 2013 after a computer programmer, Frederick Brennan, came up with the idea for a site which was a free, speech-friendly alternative to 4chan, which he felt was growing to be authoritarian. Brennan had grown up with brittle bone disease or osteogenesis imperfecta and lived his life in foster care, suffering over 120 bone fractures by the time he was 20. He had been using 4chan since the age of 12 in 2006. Quite the tragedy, and pretty telling when it came to where things went wrong. When his father put him and his brother in the foster care system of New York, he felt isolated and would browse 4chan for hours, dominating his childhood. He was a self-taught computer programmer and grew up to live in Brooklyn, working freelance. He was becoming increasingly frustrated with the moderators on 4chan, who he felt were too strict on what was supposed to be the wild west of the internet. Unsurprisingly, he was high on shrooms when the idea formed in his head, but was conscious enough to write it down so he wouldn't forget about it when he was sober. It took him 2 days to research and then compile a plan, releasing it online. But this fun little free speech message board experiment would turn incredibly drastic in ways you'd never imagine. 11 months after its creation, it became home to the Gamergate campaign. If you don't know, Gamergate was a misogynistic far-right wing campaign which lasted from 2014 to 2015. It started from a blog post written by the ex-boyfriend of Zoe Quinn, an indie video game dev. He made false claims that Quinn had slept with a journalist to get good reviews for her video game. This quickly spread to 4chan, and a mass harassment campaign was launched. They didn't spare any woman who defended her either, with doxing, R-word threats, and death threats becoming common. After extreme backlash, 4chan then banned any mention of Gamergate from its site, and the angry misogynists migrated to the 8chan website, where they continued to coordinate attacks on any who didn't agree with their supposed agenda. As Gamergate slowly faded from popular culture, the users remained and their agenda shifted to other individuals who opposed their mainly right-wing ideology. One such movement is the famous QAnon conspiracy. An anonymous user, Q, named after his supposed Q-level security clearance in the US government, would often post his conspiracy theories on sites like 4chan and 8chan. For those who don't know about this outlandish conspiracy, it basically outlines a theory that President Trump is waging war against elite Satan worshippers that run the government and inhabit other powerful positions in America. They believe that a day of reckoning will come where prominent leaders of this cult, such as Hillary Clinton, would be executed. Q predicted that Trump would win in the 2020 elections, but as you might already know, he didn't win. QAnon conspiracists were suspected to be behind the January 6 riots where Republicans stormed the Capitol building in an unprecedented attack. If that wasn't enough, the site was also a platform for 3 mass shooters who used it to advertise themselves. Brenton Tarrant livestreamed himself murdering 51 people in the devastating Christchurch mosque shooting in New Zealand, and he posted a link to his Facebook livestream first on 8chan with a message saying, "Well lads, it's time to stop posting and time to make a real-life effort post. I will carry out an attack against the invaders and will even livestream the attack via Facebook." His manifesto was also posted there. The Poway synagogue shooting, where 1 person was fatally shot and 3 injured, posted an extremely racist and anti-Semitic letter on 8chan, trying to mirror the Christchurch shooting. The El Paso shooting, where 22 were killed and further 26 were injured, also posted a manifesto on 8chan ranting about immigration. All of these hate-filled posts received a sickening amount of praise from the 8chan user base. Cloudflare, a service that protects DDoS attacks, immediately stopped supporting 8chan as a client after these shootings. Its founder, Frederick Brennan, is disgusted by these events. He felt at least partially responsible for the hurt caused to so many due to his website. Until 2016, he served as an administrator, and his misgivings started soon after the days after the Christchurch shooting. He said that he didn't care if it was shut down, wondering whether it was a good thing that he created 8chan. Keeping it online soon became a struggle for Brennan, as bandwidth limits kept exceeding and nobody really wanted to host it for obvious reasons. Hope came from Ronald Watkins, along with his father and 8chan's current owner, Jim Watkins, who owned NT Technology, said he would host it, while Brennan acted as the public figurehead of the site. They did not charge him, only taking 60% of any profits 8chan made. Brennan soon moved to the Philippines, where he stayed in a fancy villa in Manila, provided by Watkins, who also lived there. Jim Watkins made his money by helping Japanese corn stars evade the country's strict regulations by hosting a corn site called Asian Bikini Bar and allowing them to host their content on it. In 2016, after a fallout with Watkins, Brennan soon left 8chan and gave up a complete control to the Watkins, who were prominent supporters of the QAnon conspiracy. After Cloudflare took down their services, the site rebranded to 8chan and relaunched through a Russian host known for enabling cyber criminal activity. But its return was brief until a Vancouver-based software company, Vanwa Tech, started providing services to 8chan. Vanwa Tech is known for hosting a variety of far-right and neo websites such as the Daily Stormer and Kiwi Farms, a website responsible for multiple S-words in the online community. While Brennan now be appalled at what his vision had become, it is too late to salvage anything of 8chan, or now 8chan, as it becomes the home for the extremist far right and has a reputation so bad it leaves a bad taste in your mouth every time you talk about it. Rotten.com. You might all know about LiveLeak, the infamous internet forum where you could see things you really shouldn't see. But before that, in the beginnings of the internet, there was Rotten.com. The internet only became mainstream a couple years prior, with easy access being available to the public. Founded in 1996 by a developer only known as Soylent Communications, its ideology was heavily inspired by the First Amendment. At a time when internet censorship was becoming a bigger worry, Rotten.com wanted to prove that censorship was unethical and wrong and serve as a haven for free speech of a most controversial nature, in the developer's own words. It was the OG shock site. Blood, gore, and extreme graphic violence were all too common on this site. It first gained notoriety when an alleged picture of Princess Diana's fatal crash was posted on the site and traffic spiked. It was later proven to be fake, but now the site was in the public's eye. Tupac's autopsy was featured on the site, along with other high-profile crime scenes such as the murder of Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman. It was one of the first media outlets, if it can even be called that, to cover the 9/11 attacks, and had the most videos on 9/11 jumpers. If you don't know what a 9/11 jumper is, it's pretty horrifically self-explanatory. Ron.com had the most footage of these jumpers, as regular print and digital media had buried and or censored it out of fear that it was simply too much, too gory, or too harsh. And by the accounts of some people, it may have been for the best. I was a photo editor at Monthly Magazine in New York City on 9/11-2001. Later that week, I had to edit photos from Getty Images for usage in the magazine, the raw footage that was only accessible to publications that paid for the service. I have never forgotten the images of the jumpers. The photos were clear, and you could see their faces. It was horrific, but even worse in every shot. The woman jumped holding the hand of another woman. The men were always alone when they jumped. I remember crying at my computer as I'm typing this post. Their faces were so clear that a family member could definitely recognize them. The second day, I was so upset my editor-in-chief sent me home. Those posts still exist in the Getty archives. I have never forgotten those horrific photos. This shot was a trigger that I had repressed. I still remember the smell of the city as I walked home from Midtown to Brooklyn with millions of others in a daze. Soylent justified this gruesome content by saying that if you wanted to censor the site, you have to censor medical texts, museums, and libraries. Furthermore, he added that horrors are sprinkled throughout life, and I see no problem with concentrating them. If you want, we could go down to the bookstores and find pictures of cadavers for you. It's very easy. It's not possible to write a law to make it impossible to display that stuff, even for minors. It's too much of a slippery slope to take. In its peak, it was seeing roughly 200,000 visitors a day and was being investigated by the FBI for images involving and cannibalism. Those, thankfully, were proven to be fake. So, who is Soylent Communications? There's a rumor that it is a programmer named Thomas E. Dell who allegedly runs Soylent and wrote a bulletin board system named Waffle. Waffle was used by an early internet service provider named Mindvox, founded by the Legion of Doom hacker group, where it would cover a vast array of topics from the evolution of cyberspace to drugs and Mindvox may have been the inspiration for Rotten.com, and there are many other similarities to the site. However, Rotten.com is no traditional forum site. It had a very minimal layout, just consisting of user-submitted links with a morbid joke description below it and no thumbnails, which meant that you could just see about anything if you clicked that link. It also spawned a host of other sites. The Daily Rotten, started by Thomas E. Dell, published stories based on terrorism, murder, S-word, and abuse. It was driven entirely by user submissions, filtered by an editor, posting extremely graphic images on entirely real gore. Another site was The Gaping Maw, which was a site for commentary and satire written by cartoonist Tristan Farnan. This actually improved the site's image a little bit, as it was more of a discussion and contained intellectual arguments compared to the mindless violence posted every day on the main site. The user base of Rotten.com was obviously deeply disturbed, and this would show clearly when a game called Rotten Deadpool was launched. In it, players would pick 10 people who they believed would die over the next 10 months and would get a point for each correct guess they made. I don't know about you, but this sounds pretty similar to something I've seen in a movie. While the message of what this site is trying to achieve seems pretty clear, the problems it poses greatly outweigh the principle at hand. With there already being several rumors of what's hiding deep within the website, there's no telling how long before it's revealed that the website is hosting videos of a very disgusting nature. The internet is a mirror of humanity, and sometimes what it reflects is truly terrifying, and in this case, disturbing. These places remind us that not everything online is meant to be found. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all. This is one of my favorite videos I've ever made. Please comment down below if you'd like to see another dark web video in the future, or maybe an internet rabbit holes video in the future. I'm down to make anything. I appreciate you sticking to the end. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps a ton. This was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.